Good day everyone. Today our group is going to be presenting about using machine learning to predict ICU admission, ICU mortality and survival length of stay among COVID-19 patients toward optimal allocation of ICU resources. This is the general article that was used by our group to see how machine learning is applied. This is the outline of the video presentation. So, COVID-19 is a worldwide phenomenon, a disease that globally affected many people. This has caused many people to get treatment, especially in the ICU unit. Hence, there has been scarcity in the resources. This is the issue that has been raised in the study. How are we going to solve this issue? We can use machine learning to predict the people need for ICU admission, the outcome of people staying in the ICU unit, death or survival, and the length of ICU stay amongst survival in the hospital. By doing this, the doctors can allocate the resources more optimally, as they will know which patient should be prioritized. So how is the study conducted? The study was carried out by studying 733 patients retrospectively who were diagnosed with the COVID-19. Those patients were admitted to Wangbi Hospital of Traditional Chinese Medicine, Wuhan, China. The patients were admitted there from January 2020 to March 2020. There were 909 variables recorded from the electronic medicine record for every inpatient from the hospital. The variables were divided into three categories. Firstly, demographic information such as age, gender, and comorbidities. Secondly, cleaning and course examination like CT scan. Thirdly, laboratory indicator like complete blood count and respiratory tract infections. Hence, there were three important task variables that needed an answer which could be predicted by a machine learning model. The first task is the machine learning model needs to predict which patient should be admitted into ICU unit. They were divided into two categories known as patient who need ICU and patient who don't need ICU. The patient who need ICU are patients who were admitted to ICU and went through invasive ventilation, and people who were not admitted to ICU and died. The patient who don't need ICU are people who were not admitted to ICU and healed from the COVID-19. The second task variables is after the patient are admitted to the ICU unit, who among them would die. They also were divided into two categories known as ICU survival group and ICU death group. ICU survival group were people who were admitted to ICU and survived, but ICU death group were people who were admitted to ICU but later died. The third task variable was to find the length of ICU stay among the people who have survived in the hospital. Once stating the task, top 10 variables were identified for each task or target variables. How was this done? Each target variable had its own way of obtaining the 10 variables. For target variable 1, prediction for the need of ICU, and target variable 2, death or survival in ICU, receiver operating characteristics curve and area under the curve were examined. The variables were ranked by their IUC values for target variable 1 and target variable 2. For multivariate prediction, the top 10 variables that have the highest AUC values were used to create binary classifier for target variable 1 and target variable 2. The machine learning model used for the binary classification is known as support vector machine with a polynomial kernel. For the need for ICU and no need for ICU group, ensuing learning was utilized to balance the size of the sample between two groups. Meanwhile, for the death and survival group, recursive feature elimination was done. Recursive feature elimination is the kernel as it only selects features that are most relevant for the target variable. On the other hand, for target variable 3, which is the length of ICU stay for the survivor, the least absolute shrinkage and selection operator regression model was utilized. This was done to increase the accuracy of the prediction of the variable. By using L1 normal regularization, only a few variables were selected. The variables ranked within the top 10 largest absolute value of regression coefficient were selected and analyzed individually. What are the 10 variables for each task? For the single variable analysis for target variable 1, which is the prediction for the need of ICU, 10 cleaning variables achieve the highest AUC, predicting a patient need for ICU admission. These are the 10 variables. Meanwhile, multivariables analysis found that jointly considering those top 10 factors had an accuracy superior to most single variable. Its accuracy was 0.83 and AUC were 0.84 for predicting whether inpatient will need ICU care. For the single variate analysis for target variable 2, which is the prediction of the death in the ICU unit, there were 10 variables that were identified. Those are the 10 variables. Meanwhile, for multivariate analysis, all the 10 variables joint seem to have a better contribution to the death of patients admitted to ICU rather than a single variable could contribute. The accuracy was 0.92 and AUC was 0.98 in the predicting if the patient would die, although they have been admitted into the ICU unit for care. For target variable 3, which is the prediction length of ICU stay among the survivor, there were 10 cleaning variables that were most predictive. Those are the 10 cleaning variables. The multivariance analysis found that the performance of the top 10 factor was superior to the all single variates. The mean absolute error for multivariance analysis using threefold cross-validation was 0.723. This value referred to any error of less than 1 day in predicting the duration of ICU stay among survivor before admitting into ICU. There are three contributions that was obtained from this study. The first contribution of the study is predicting the admission to ICU When a patient has oxygen saturation lower than 88%, myoglobin level lower than 51.55 ng/ml, and high sensitivity troponin 1 more than 20.3 bg/ml, it can be concluded that the patient would need to be admitted to the ICU unit. The second contribution of the study is to predict which patient would die although they are admitted into ICU. From the result obtained, lymphocyte percentage, lymphocyte absolute value, lactate dehydrogenase, D-dimer, albumin, adenosine deaminase, direct bilirubin, receptor rate, and pills had caused inevitably death among the patient admitted to ICU. The third contribution of the study is to predict the length of ICU stay among the survivor. The length of ICU stay can aid in quantifying the turnover rate of patients in ICU. Finally, in all three tasks, lymphocyte absolute value was involved. This is a big sign that COVID-19 patients were verily infected. In short, this study showed that machine learning can be utilized in predicting which patient diagnosed with the COVID-19 should be ICU admitted, which of the admitted patient would die despite being admitted to ICU, and the length of ICU stay among the survivors. This prediction can help the hospital to better manage an outbreak in a way that more life could be saved by the allocation of ICU resources. That's all from our group. Thank you so much.